What if I told you the NBA's future might be slipping through the hands of the very people who built it? What if I told you the league is going through a quiet but monumental epidemic? We have now officially entered an era where a wave of team sales is shaking the league, not because franchises are failing, but because they've become too expensive to hold on to.
Bombshell report says the Buss family agrees to sell the Lakers.
Major developing news out of Dallas. We are tracking a growing number of reports that Mark Cuban plans to sell a majority stake of the Dallas Mavericks.
They're basically saying you're going to pay these three guys that you drafted. You're only going to be able to have minimum players around.
Felt like I let people down, by not being there.
When you think about the NBA offseason, you think about blockbuster trades, star players switching jerseys, and the hype of free agency. What you don't expect is an influx of ownership changes rocking the very foundation of the league. But that's exactly what we're seeing right now, and it's unlike anything the NBA has experienced before. The Los Angeles Lakers, the crown jewel of the NBA, a franchise that's been controlled by the Buss family for nearly half a century, have agreed to sell a majority stake of the team for a record-shattering $10 billion valuation. The Dallas Mavericks, Mark Cuban, one of the most visible and passionate owners in all of sports, sold his majority share last year. The Portland Trail Blazers and Minnesota Timberwolves sold. The Celtics, Suns, Bucks, Hornets in recent times, and the list goes on. It's a mass exodus of owners, and while on the surface it looks like business as usual, people buying and selling valuable assets, there's a much deeper story here. A story that might just change the future of the NBA as we know it. And it all starts with the league's new collective bargaining agreement. Back in 2023, the NBA and the Players Association agreed to a new collective bargaining agreement, a deal that many analysts initially praised for promoting parity and creating a more competitive league. The idea was simple: make it harder for the richest teams to outspend everyone else. But according to people who understand the league's economics, that plan might have backfired in a massive way. Former NBA player and current analyst Richard Jefferson put it bluntly on his Road Trippin' podcast.
With this CBA, they're screwed. That's why all the owners are getting out. That's why part of the reason why the owners are selling. All the current owners are getting out. Again, that was part of the conversation. It's not just owners that want to stack the deck. It's not just Lakers and Celtics. Charlotte sold. Like other franchises are like Portland sold. It's just like, even when you get to a space now of like, they're looking at it, it's like, even if I do a good job and I field a good team, it's going to cost me so much money to even keep a good team.
That's the core issue. Under the new system, if you're a successful team, if you draft well, make smart trades, and build a contender, you're punished for it. Luxury tax penalties escalate quickly, and the dreaded second apron can make operating a contender feel almost impossible without hemorrhaging cash. Owners who used to see spending big as an investment in winning now see it as a financial trap. And when you combine that with rising franchise valuations, you get exactly what you're seeing now, a mass sell-off that nobody predicted. No case illustrates this better than Mark Cuban and the Dallas Mavericks. For over 2 decades, Cuban was more than just an owner. He was the face of the Mavericks, courtside for every game, arguing calls, celebrating wins, and sometimes even confronting players for lack of effort. He was deeply involved in basketball operations, building a team around Dirk Nowitzki and later Luka Doncic. So when Cuban announced in late 2023 that he was selling the majority stake of the franchise, the NBA world was stunned. The Mavericks sold for $3.5 billion to the Adelson family, a staggering number, but Cuban insisted he wasn't walking away. He retained a 27% stake and, according to him, had a clause in the deal allowing him to remain fully involved in the team's decisions. Except, the NBA reportedly stepped in and removed that clause. "I don't regret selling the team," Cuban said. "I regret how I did it. There was a clause that gave me the right to be at every meeting, every trade discussion, everything, and the NBA took that out." Since then, Cuban has admitted that while he didn't lose money on the sale, his tenure as an owner cost him hundreds of millions of dollars over the years. And to make matters worse, the Mavericks have gone through massive changes since the sale, including the shocking trade that sent Luka Doncic out of Dallas, a move Cuban publicly said would never happen if he was still in charge.
Oh yeah, let's trade one of the top 3 players in the NBA, right? I wouldn't have done it, but it's done, and so.
This is the perfect example of what Jefferson was talking about. Owners who once saw their teams as passion projects, even if they weren't massively profitable, now see them as complicated, high-risk ventures. And when someone offers billions of dollars to take that stress away, it becomes hard to say no. Then there's the Los Angeles Lakers. The The Buss family has owned the Lakers since 1979, when Jerry Buss brought the team and a package deal that included the LA Kings and the Forum for just $67.5 million. Under his ownership and later his children's, the Lakers became the most successful NBA franchise of the modern era, winning 11 championships since 1980 and becoming a global brand worth more than some entire leagues. So when the news broke that the Buss family had agreed to sell a majority stake to Mark Walter, already a minority owner and the head of TWG Global, which also owns the Dodgers and Chelsea FC, the shockwaves were immediate. The deal values the Lakers at $10 billion, making it the largest transaction in the history of American sports. The Buss family will retain a minority share of just over 15%, and Jeannie Buss will continue to serve as governor for the foreseeable future. Magic Johnson, a Lakers legend and longtime friend of the Buss family, praised the deal, calling Walter the best possible caretaker for the franchise. And sure, from a business perspective, this deal makes sense. The Lakers' valuation is an all-time high, and selling now ensures that the Buss family locks in a massive profit. But the symbolism of the sale is impossible to ignore. If even the Lakers, the most iconic team in the NBA, aren't immune to the pressures of modern ownership, what does that say about the state of the league? To understand this ownership exodus, you have to look at the bigger picture. Owning an NBA team is still a profitable venture. Franchises are worth more than ever, and revenue streams from TV deals, sponsorships, and global expansion continue to grow. But profitability isn't the same as sustainability, and that's where the problem lies. The new CBA has created a financial environment where being good, truly good, costs exponentially more money. Owners are staring down escalating tax bills, limited roster flexibility, and long-term uncertainty. For family-owned teams like the Buss family in LA or Paul Allen's estate with the Blazers, the logical move is to cash out while valuations are sky high. For investors and billionaire buyers, these franchises are less about winning championships and more about diversifying portfolios. This shift raises an uncomfortable question: is winning still the priority for NBA ownership? For fans, these ownership changes aren't just headlines, they're altering the experience of following the league. Free agency, once one of the most exciting times of the year, has become frustrating and frankly boring. Big name players are staying put because teams can't afford to move them, and when trades do happen, they're often driven by salary dumps rather than competitive ambition. As one anonymous NBA executive told a reporter during the opening of free agency this summer, the league needs to remember that free agency is entertainment. And that's the heart of the issue. The NBA has always been as much about the spectacle as the sport. The drama, the movement, the chaos, that's what keeps fans engaged year-round. If the league loses that, it risks losing part of what makes it special. This trend of rapid-fire ownership sales comes at a particular risky time for the NBA. The league is gearing up for expansion, with cities like Las Vegas and Seattle expected franchises in the near future. Expansion is supposed to be a celebration, a sign of growth and stability. But how stable is the league really if so many of its cornerstone franchises are changing hands? There's also the question of who's buying these teams. Private equity firms and investment groups don't necessarily have the same passion for the game that player owners like Jerry Buss or Mark Cuban did. For them, teams are assets to be managed, not communities to be nurtured. If that trend continues, what does the league look like in 10 years from now? Will fans still feel that same connection to their teams if those teams are just another line item in a billionaire's portfolio? At the end of the day, the NBA is a business. It always has been. But the balance between business and basketball has never felt more fragile. For decades, owners were willing to spend, take losses, and go that extra mile because they loved the game and wanted to win. Now the financial realities of the new CBA have changed the calculation. If something doesn't change, the league could find itself in a dangerous position where owning a team isn't just expensive, it's unattractive. And if franchises start losing bidders, or worse, if certain markets can't sustain ownership, the league could be facing bigger problems far bigger than the player movement or TV ratings. The good news for fans is that change is almost inevitable. The current CBA runs through to the end of the decade, but with so much dissatisfaction from owners, players, and fans, you can bet that the league will revisit these rules in the 2029-2030 negotiations. Whether it's adjusting the luxury tax penalties, adding more roster flexibility, or finding new revenue sharing models, the NBA is going to have to make ownership appealing again, not just profitable, but sustainable and rewarding. Until then though, this quiet epidemic isn't going away. More teams will be sold, more familiar names will step away, and the league will continue to look very different from one we knew just a few years ago. The NBA is at a crossroads. On one hand, the league has never been more valuable or more global. On the other hand, the very people who built the franchise into billion-dollar brands are heading for the exits. Maybe this is just natural evolution of booming businesses. Or maybe it's a warning sign that the NBA is losing something essential, the passion and stability that come from owners who truly care about the game and their communities. One thing is certain, the next 5 years are going to define the future of the league. Whether the NBA learns from these ownership shakeups or doubles down on a system that punishes success will determine if this era becomes just a bump in the road or the beginning of something much more concerning. But what do you guys think? Are these ownership changes just smart business decisions, or is the league in trouble? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and as always, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. My name is Damian Peters, and I'll see you in the next one.